Idaho Matters podcast is brought to you by St. Luke's On Demand Virtual Care, which allows patients to see a provider from their home using a computer or smartphone with on demand care for common ailments such as a cough, sore throat, or a sinus issue. More information at stlukesonline.org.
Public media is under immediate threat. I'm General Manager Tom Michael from Boise State Public Radio. In the coming days, the U.S. Senate is expected to vote on a rescission request from the White House, which wants to claw back funds that were already approved by Congress. This station is one of hundreds across the country that would lose out. You can let your U.S. Senator know directly that you value funding for public radio. Or visit protectmypublicmedia.org.
From the studios of Boise State Public Radio News, I'm Samantha Wright, filling in for Gemma Gaudette. This is Idaho Matters. Last year, 10,000 acres burned in the Boise foothills. Let that sink in. 10,000 acres of food and shelter for birds and animals like elk and mule deer. And now volunteers are heading out each Tuesday to part of the landscape, and they're watering new plants by hand. Not a lot of hoses up there. They're also weeding some of the area by hand. That's a lot of work. To help give those new plants a fighting chance. And we wanted to find out more about the restoration, so we asked John Matthews. He's a Corps volunteer with the Golden Eagle Audubon Society to join us, along with Ann Moser, wildlife biologist at the Boise River Wildlife Management Area, as well as Dana Fales, stewardship coordinator with the Society. And we asked them all to join us now. Welcome to the show. Welcome back to the show.
Thanks.
Okay, so Golden Eagle Audubon adopted 10 acres of the burned area. Danae, where is this patch of land? Where's it at?
We adopted this small area of the burn that's just about a mile from Boise. It's up the Highland Valley Trail, near where the Highland Valley and the Cobb Trails intersect, if you spend any time up there. But it's within the Boise River Wildlife Management Area, and it's close to home.
It is. And Dana, why did the Society want to get involved in this project?
A big part of our mission as a nonprofit is to conserve and restore natural ecosystems for birds, but also other wildlife. So when we saw this fire so close to home, we knew a lot of our members and volunteers would be anxious to get to help restoring this area. So we met with Fish and Game to pick an area that would give us the biggest return for wildlife. In Idaho, 46% of birds use riparian habitat as their nesting habitat. The riparian areas like where there's water, streams, and rivers. So the fire decimated this riparian area that we picked, and so we really knew that we wanted to get the willows and the cover back into this creek area to give nature a jump start and help out the birds and wildlife there.
John, you've been up there. What does it look like up there? Describe the landscape now.
Well, the landscape from a distance doesn't look different than it did a year ago. But when you're actually on site, you can see lots of the burn patches. There's lots of burned sagebrush plants that kind of dot the area. And what we find is a lot of the invasive plants have grown in. And then our plants are also mixed in. And of course, we're able to identify our plants because we put mesh cages around them with a bamboo stick. So that gives us a guide as to where our plants are.
And you're going out and hand watering your plants. How do you get the water up there? I guess is my first question.
Well, water access obviously is very, very critical. And we're fortunate in this project in that the Fish and Game has been supplying a water tank that they fill on a regular basis. So we actually take our hand watering buckets, our 5-gallon orange buckets, and our little travel shovels, and we can go to that water supply, which is right on site, and we use that to water the plants.
And tell me about the plants. What kind of plants are you hand watering that are out there?
Well, these are native plants that have been grown via the Treasure Valley Native Plant Network right here in the valley. So they're native plants that grew up in this area. And there's a mix of flowering forbs, some bushes, and some trees. It's kind of a diverse mix of plants.
And I heard volunteers also hand pull weeds. That's a lot of manual work.
Well, we pull when we can't pull them all naturally, but we pull them when they start to infringe upon our plants. So if we're kind of, one plant at a time is our focus and we're down there with that plant. And if we see an invasive plant, coming into the area, we'll pull it right there. But we certainly don't go and just start pulling because it would be futile, of course. So we just kind of protect the area around the individual plant.
And I'm hearing a lot of cooperation going on. John mentioned Native Plant Society and the Golden Eagle Audubon Society. There are a lot of people involved getting this rehab going and getting it up and running.
Yes, we also have, so the Southwest region of Idaho Fish and Game also has a volunteer program. And we've had hundreds of volunteers came out and helped us plant sagebrush and bitterbrush, both in the fall and in the spring. We also have cooperation from the Wild Turkey Federation. They're helping us plant some trees way up on the ridge. Quail Forever is helping us water some plants that we've planted. And then, of course, the Golden Eagle Audubon Society, we greatly appreciate the work that they're doing.
Well, and let's talk about some of that work, hand weeding, hand watering. Why and are you working so hard to get some kinds of plants to grow and then kicking out others?
So the first thing is, so John already mentioned it, is after a fire, we have increased competition from invasive plants and noxious weeds. So we need to plant plants to give them a head start so that hopefully they can outcompete those invasive grasses, usually is what it is. And rush skeleton weed is another one that's very abundant in the foothills. So we have that, plus the probability of success is low, not only due to competition, but also due to weather. So if we don't get any more rain for the rest of the summer, many of our plants will die. So the fact that Golden Eagle Audubon Society is watering plants is amazing, because that's going to give those plants really good probability of survival.
And how is the rehab going up on the burned area?
Well, it's a lot of work, to say the least. It's going slow. The fire started on October 4th. And so by the time we had permission to get into the fire and get into the boundary, it was already getting into fall. And pretty soon you don't have much time to do a lot of plantings before suddenly it's winter. So we did get quite a bit done in the fall. We've also done some in the spring, but we've probably impacted maybe about 1,000 acres of the 6,000 acres on fish and game land. And that's things that we've done by hand. The other thing that we've done is we have aerial seeded sagebrush with the helicopter. So that was on about 4,500 acres. And so that is significant because sagebrush will not reseed itself, and it does not, let me rephrase that. It will not resprout after a fire. And it has to rely on seed coming from the outside in order to repopulate the burn area. And that can take decades. So if we can get sagebrush seed on the ground on top of ash, it gives sagebrush a higher probability of coming back quicker.
Well, I know we're talking about hand weeding, hand watering, but I think this is fascinating that Fish and Game actually dropped sagebrush seeds from the air. I think that's amazing.
It's actually a pretty common practice after a fire in Idaho.
Wow. That's incredible. Okay, we're speaking with John Matthews, a Corps volunteer with the Golden Eagle Audubon Society, Ann Moser, a wildlife biologist at Boise River Wildlife Management Area, as well as Danae Fales, stewardship coordinator with the Society, and we're talking about the rehab restoration project in the Boise foothills. And I want to ask, why is this area so important to wildlife? And I talked about, birds and riparian areas, but a lot of wildlife are using this area.
Yeah, so the primary focus really for us, for Idaho Fish and Game, is thinking about mule deer. So mule deer are very traditional about where they go in the winter. And the Boise Front, and specifically the Boise River Wildlife Management Area, is one of the biggest mule deer winter ranges in Idaho. And when I say traditional, it means they go back to the same place every year. So Mama Doe brings her fawn to the wintering area, and then that fawn later, she learns where to take her fawn in the future. So when they come here in the winter and all of a sudden there's no food, not only is there no food, there's no cover. So there's no cover from the weather, there's no protection from predators. So we want to try to jumpstart the landscape recovery as quick as we can.
And Dana, I know you're helping with that, as you said, with birds in mind, but all the animals. This is just one of the many projects that Golden Eagle Audubon gets involved with.
It is. We have a lot of volunteer efforts. People may have heard about the Boise River Rewild project that wrapped up last summer, and really the fires provided an opportunity to continue with local stewardship, but we are always engaging volunteers in different habitat improvement. Some of it's in parks. We have the Warm Springs Pollinator Garden in Boise City that we steward, and a section of the Bethune Church River Trail that we also steward. So there's a lot of ways that folks can get involved with our stewardship projects and volunteer with us. If they want to find out more or make a donation to help us keep doing these things, you can visit our website, goldeneagleaudubon.org.
John, talk about the volunteers. You had some teenage volunteers helping you, I think, plant seedlings this spring. Can anyone volunteer to help out up in the foothills?
You bet. Everybody is welcome, and of course, many hands makes the village. But as they said, you can go to the Golden Eagle website and sign up there, and we would gladly love to have additional help and show people what we're doing and how we restore and how we take care of each plant one at a time.
And John, as we've said, that's a lot of work. How are the volunteers? Is it? I mean, it's got to be hard work, but is it fun? Is it? Do you feel like you're doing a good job up there?
It is fun. You have to go in there, of course, with the right attitude because there's a lot of walking. It's grab a bucket, walk 200 yards, go refill, walk 200 yards. And of course, it's uphill with that bucket of water. So it's a workout, but it's good exercise. We do stop and listen to the birds. And right now we have a small waterfall that trickles and we can listen to that. And we do try to interact with one another. So we do try to make it as fun as we can.
And you alluded to this a little bit. How long is it going to take this landscape to recover? It's not going to be overnight.
It is definitely not going to be overnight. And it will probably take decades before it looks like what it did before the fire. We talked about sagebrush, but bitterbrush is also another important shrub species for birds as well as mule deer. And we had probably 6 foot tall bitterbrush in there, and that will take decades for it to get that tall.
Wow. Okay, we've been speaking with John Matthews, Corps volunteer with the Golden Eagle Audubon Society and Moser wildlife biologist at Boise River Wildlife Management Area, as well as Dana Fales, stewardship coordinator with the Society, about the rehab restoration project in the Boise foothills. You can sign up to be a volunteer on Tuesdays and haul water and rip out weeds by hand in the Boise foothills. We'll put some links on our website, boisestatepublicradio.org. Thanks, everybody, for being here and for telling us more about it.
Thanks, Samantha.
Thank you.
You've been listening to Idaho Matters from Boise State Public Radio. I'm Gemma Gaudette.
These days, there's so much news, it can be hard to keep up with what it all means for you, your family, and your community. The Consider This podcast from NPR features our award-winning journalism. 6 days a week, we bring you a deep dive on a news story and provide the context and analysis that helps you make sense of the news. We get behind the headlines. We get to the truth. Listen to the Consider This podcast from NPR.